All right, joining me via Zoom, live from his office on campus, which in and of itself is an incredibly positive sign. Head coach, Indiana University, Archie Miller. My man, what's going on?
Aaron, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. First of all, does it just feel good to just be in your chair in your office with your picture of Romeo Langford on draft night in the background? I mean, it's been such a surreal 5-6 months. Does it just feel good to be back to some semblance of normalcy?
You know, it does. This is always a special time on college campuses. You know, you have move-in week sort of going on. You start to feel that buzz of the fall, coming around. Your players are ready to get back to campus, and you start with all your meetings and whatnot. But I think the thing that's just a little bit unique here is the last 6 months have been obviously very difficult for everybody. But it does feel good to be back. I know that here at IU and what we've done the past 8 to 10 weeks with our players, we feel comfortable right now with where we're at. And, the fact I'm in my office without my mask on gives some semblance of a little bit of regular activity here and a little excitement that, we're ready to kick off the fall.
I want to get into some other stuff and have a little fun, but I actually do want to ask you that, right? Because you have people in the media like myself saying the safest place these kids can be on a college is on a college campus with your guys' medical staff, whether it's a football team, a basketball team, an Olympics sports team. I know there's certain things you can and cannot talk about, but as best as you can you explain what you guys have been able to provide for your student athletes? Because it's one thing for a guy like me to say it, but it's another thing for a guy like yourself who's living it, who's there every day, who sees what your doctors, your medical staff are doing. I would just be curious for whatever you can share to explain to the audience what is actually being done.
Yeah, I can't speak for every university or in every state. And I think that's the very unique thing when everyone starts to try to explain those circumstances for their athletes, because everyone is different and every protocol is different. But, from our standpoint, our players came back in the middle of June and then some came back in the early part of July. We were able to complete a 6-week and then in some cases even an 8-week period of time with our players on campus. Bloomington is a college town and it's a little bit emptier, in the summertime. So there isn't as much activity here, but what we found out is after going through some trial and error, number one, your players have to be really responsible. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter where you're at, what normal and what you want to achieve out of your time. If they're going to give you some things that aren't as comfortable as they normally would be, the way you want to move around on a daily basis, the way you want to act, it's just not going to work. And I think, that's the first thing I think everyone has to figure out is how responsible your guys are going to be. But, our guys were able to lift weights, for a 6-week period of time, 8-week period of time, 4 mornings a week in very small groups. They lifted weights with masks on. Our strength and conditioning staff was only allowed in the weight room facility. In the limited numbers in the areas that you're in, I think is one of the things that's very, different. I wasn't, unless I had to be able to pop in to see somebody or say hello, wasn't really involved a whole lot in any of the sessions that they were involved with. So it's a little unique there. Our gym, our practice facility, at the very beginning was run by our doctors and our head trainer, Tim Garl. And, he basically ran the show. You enter a building, you get your temperature taken, you answer questions before you enter the building via, your cell phone and whatnot. If there's anything that screens early, you can't come in. And once we got through that, they were able to set up some regular scheduled times where they could come in and shoot the ball. No coaches were in the gym. Themselves could run some workouts or whatnot, but if there was a rebounder, they wore masks and whatnot. We got through about 4 weeks there, or 3.5 weeks, where I thought we got into a pretty good groove and rhythm. And then right around the middle of July, as you know, they granted access for coaches to be able to do more regular scheduled stuff. And then as our coaches sort of got involved, then it became a little bit unique. Do you want all your coaches on the floor at the same time, or do you want to keep a couple coaches in different sessions in case something happens to an athlete or a player in a workout. Not everybody gets wiped out. So you really are really honestly starting to preventative maintenance. You're planning for disasters almost every morning if guys can't show up. But I tell you, we did an amazing job. I give all the credit to our administration for one, just allowing our opportunity because not everybody had it. Second thing is once we were here, I thought our administration and then our doctors and our training staff really did a great job of laying it out for our guys on if you're here, this is what it's going to be. And then the credit goes to the players because if they're not going to do it, as you've seen all around the country here and anything that's sports related, once you step outside of your bubble, so to speak, or your protocol, that's when the problems are going to arise. And we had no real issues at all summer. I thought we had about as consistent of the summer as we could have possibly had. Our guys felt good. They were happy to be around one another. I thought they really were energized when they left. Like, this is going to work. If we could keep it going like this is going to be a good thing. But to your first question, college student athletes in the most case are getting some of the best health care of their lives. Whether that's the orthopedic doctors, the general practitioner doctors, the dentists, the eyes, they always have the ability to get that type of care. And then, from a training perspective and a doctor perspective, they're constantly being evaluated. They're constantly being talked to. And, a lot of times, the monitoring and the bird dogging of where they're at on the off hours is probably a little bit tedious and maybe they get tired of hearing it, but that's what it's going to take. And, I think in general, if you were to paint a big picture how college athletes and athletics feel about this period of time, I definitely think most would be on the side of this is the most secure you're going to be. This is the best setup you're going to be. And if a problem arises, I have the most amount of care and people around me. So I definitely think that student athletes are in a safe environment when it comes to, the amount of care they're going to get, the amount of attention they're going to get, and just the overwhelming follow through on what you're doing, where you're at, and how this is working. And, being able to sniff out problems earlier than maybe. But, once college kids come on campus, it's fun time, right? I mean, it's I'm leaving home, I'm going back to school. Everyone's probably ready to get back to the normal everyday activity. And that's going to be the challenge. General population, so to speak, I guess is what everyone's saying. But I think just in talking to a lot of coaches and dealing with graduate students or transfers, 75% of your stuff may be online right now, and in some cases, I think a lot of schools and coaches have prepared to do a lot more than that if they can online just to protect. So I do think there's some things that are being put in place. It's not going to be a perfect world. And what I've learned is, realistically, you have to go through some failures to correct them and move on. And then you're going to have to fail again, and then you're going to have to correct more and move on. And hopefully as the time keeps moving, testing gets better. Obviously, that was a big breakthrough this weekend, I think, with the FDA passing the saliva testing. The NBA has shown the path that it does work. And I do think that there's some real hot spots that when you deal with teams, these are your problems, whether it's dining, it's your locker rooms, or it's travel. Those are probably the hot areas that you're really going to have to, be mindful of and addressing once things get going. But, without question, Aaron, it's not easy, but everybody wants to pull this off. It's not as if we don't. Clearly, your players' health and your staff's health, everyone is concerned because it is such a scary thing to be dealing with. But I do think that, I do think that college basketball is in a good place. I think that the leadership understands that we need to have a college basketball season. Clearly, we're going to have to think outside the box how we pull it off to complete and wrap a bow on it. But I do think that what's going on in football, they're going to have to fail at it a little bit and then figure out how they get better. And basketball is going to be similar. But in terms of basketball, we have some time. And I think that if we're mindful of it and we know how important it is, that we'll be able to pull off a really good college basketball season.
So I listen to interviews and I talk to everyone's got the plan on how we pull college basketball off this year. Are you up at night, searching, far off places that the Big Ten can it seems like every coach I talk to or listen to speak has their own bulletproof plan. And like I said, they're up at night on some weird message board, finding some weird thing. What is your I know in the back of your mind there are things that you think can maybe work and can't. If Archie Miller was put in charge of pulling off this college basketball season, have you given any thought to what could and might not work?
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about it here, and then our conversations. Obviously, they get together with your conference coaches, your fellow coaches. We talk once a week in the Big Ten, and I think there's some of the best coaches in the country, if not the best league in the country, top to bottom. When you really encompass everything from campus life to the staffs in our league to the universities in general. So I think there's a lot of ideas. I just think in general, when you look at constant travel, that's probably your biggest concern as you start a season. Whether you're coming and going or the teams that are playing you are coming and going all over the place. And if you don't have, everyone's not being tested the same way, how does all that work? So, realistically, you focus in a little bit on what you can control. And for me and our staff, a Big Ten season seems like that's definitely possible. Not that non-conference basketball can't happen or bubbles can't be created or things like that. But if you just look at it, you may have to partner up. You may have to partner up with the Purdue and Indiana, Michigan State, and Indiana and Purdue head to the Michigan schools. They play each other at a 3-game in 2 days, and then we flip-flop where maybe it's the Illinois and Northwesterns come to Indiana and Purdue and West Lafayette from a Thursday through a Sunday, and all 4 of those teams at the same time are all being placed in the same testing protocols. And, hopefully now that the saliva test is coming, that, on game day, who's healthy and you can put everybody that's supposed to be there in there. And realistically, if you look at it, maybe it's a December start date of 26 round robin Big Ten games. Maybe it's a January start date of 20 Big Ten conference games. If there's no fans allowed, do you really need a conference tournament? Can you just play it throughout and lead into the NCAA tournament? There's a lot of different scenarios being set, and I think, the bubble concept clearly is on everybody's mind. How can we duplicate the NBA's bubble concept? But, for college athletics, classes and whatnot that's going on, that may be difficult. But if you look at that window around Thanksgiving and really realistically take it into February, because I know some schools like ours are extending their breaks and starting them earlier, you may have an opportunity there for a good 12 weeks with nobody on anybody's campus or around that average. And, realistically, to do a 20-game conference season, you really need around 10 weeks. So I'm not saying we play from Thanksgiving to February and then shut it down, but we have to really, be honest, break away from the models. Like none of the models and none of the irrational thinking really applies to being able to pull this off. So it may be his case. I've heard, bubbles every 2 weeks. Get 4 or 5 teams, 6 teams in one spot and get a 2-week window to kind of recover, see how it went. But I do think it's possible. And I think that window around the holidays is great, but, things change. That breakthrough with that saliva testing is big. I think everyone needs to understand that, like in talking to our doctors, seeing how the NBA has done it with the regular testing, it's cheaper and it's constant, that relatively bringing a safe team to the floor and being able to complete a game with 2 teams that are healthy at that time, that changes the game. And, I think that's why we're in a good spot. And as things continue to evolve, we'll do it. But if you told me we had to play 26 Big Ten games starting in December and as a round robin, I mean, what a grind that would be. What a grind it would be. It really would be impossible to think about playing everybody in the league twice for 26 games. But, that's a true indicator of a true season and a true champion. So we'll see how it works. I know we're working hard on it. The Big Ten coaches talking every week have a lot of the same concerns for their teams and their players. And every school's a little different too, and every state's a little different too. So, you're constantly trying to navigate this world that doesn't apply to everybody at the same time. So we got to make it work, though. I know that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I've been advocating for 6 weeks now that we'll figure it all out, but we're going to have a huge window from mid-November, late November to February, early February to get this thing done. So knock on wood. I hope everybody, people that are paid better than me can figure it out. All right. So I'm a positive vibes only guy. So we're going to talk about this upcoming season that will happen. And I know there's a lot of excitement about your team. I mean, people like me do these preseason polls. I think highly of your group. I know a lot of other people do as well. For people who don't remember, you were, I think, 19-12 is where you finished, right on the fringe of an NCAA tournament berth. This group now, how excited are you? Because there is a lot of excitement, a lot of returnees from last year, a really highly ranked recruiting class with a point guard named Christian Lander, who was basically one of the top high school players anywhere in America last year, reclassified. He is now on your campus. Give us the scoop. I mean, you excited? It feels like there's some real excitement about this team going into the fall.
I am. We finished the season, last year playing good basketball. We were playing in a very difficult league. Every team in our league that we were playing against, it seemed like, had an opportunity to be in the tournament. We were playing against a deep league. And we got better at the end, and we had some guys really playing with some confidence. So I felt like when we entered the Big Ten tournament, we were ready, got a win in the first game before they canceled it. But I think we could have had an opportunity to play in March and win games. I think any team in the Big Ten that would have entered the NCAA tournament would have been battle tested enough to be able to feel good about playing anybody. So we were heading in the right direction at the right time, and unfortunately it got cut. But I think that confidence level, that momentum, the positive feel within our locker room at the end of the season carried over. And I love where our guys are at. Our newcomers have really brought a maturity about them. They're very mature guys. They fit in here very well this summer. And our returners are not only more experienced right now, but they're hungry. They're motivated to play. And, we have a stud inside with Trace Jackson Davis. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the country. He's had a great off season. Really done a nice job here this summer of not only working on his game, but putting himself in a much more leadership role. And, we have some experience now that's played. The senior guard in Al Durham played his best ball of the year last year, the last 10, and Rob Finnessy in the last 10 games of the year played some really good ball for us. He's a junior. So he brings some experience now that has been, sort of beat up early on, and they're coming through down their junior and senior year. So we have some experience. And Joey Brunk, fifth-year senior, has an older guy. Brought a lot of intangibles to our program last year. Now he's more comfortable as he's been here a year to continue to sort of lead and be that presence that I think he had in the locker room. But we had a lot of guys do a lot of things. We had Jerome Hunter, who missed his first year after a leg injury. He played last year, his first year of college basketball, and got better. Shot over 40% from three at 6'8" at the end of the year. And, as he comes into this year now, you're looking at a guy I think can really step in and be a little bit different than we've had. But I like our perimeter guys a lot better. Our incoming guys bring shooting and size. Galloway and Leo and Geronimo, all big 6'5", 6'6", guard perimeter guys who can shoot it. And, Christian was a late ad, but very talented, very, very talented young point guard who's got a lot of gifts that I think he'll bring another, just really another guy who can really handle and play and make guys better for us. So we have a lot of different things. The emergence of a guy like Race Thompson, again, last 10 games of the season really was a starter for us. And of all of the guys through the pandemic of being away for 14 weeks and then coming back for 8 more, has grown up immensely. He's probably, right now one of our best leaders. He's changed his body, and I think he has a chance to be one of the most improved players, not only in our league, but in the country in the way that he impacts our team. So I like where we're at, and I do think that our guys have great purpose right now. And I think that they, realistically can overachieve because it's a low-maintenance group. And sometimes as a coach, the one thing you're excited about the most is knowing what you have. And part of what we have right now is a very low-maintenance group that's pretty together, just in watching them through the 8 weeks of the summer, have to deal with what they dealt with here on campus and stick together and do some things. It's a close group. It's a group that likes one another. And, at the end of the day, they've been very low maintenance in what we've asked them to do and how they've handled their business. And to me, those are the teams that really have a chance to be good, or the ones that don't beat themselves. So I'm excited about this team. I'm excited to get them back here and get going here with our fall plan. But I like our group a lot.
As best you can say, you just referenced fall plan. How much, and I should know this because it's probably dictated by the NCAA, but how much can you do going forward? And I mean, is there kind of a plan, since we really don't know when the season's going to start, what it's going to look like, all that stuff?
That's been difficult because, as every coach knows, when you start on that first day of school, in some cases, your routine has been ingrained in your players. It's been ingrained in your staff. This is what we do at this time of the year, and this is how we get started. With the flexibility now that the season could, realistically be pushed back months, how do you plan your fall? How do you plan your off season? So we sat here the other day and went through it and had 4 calendars working at one time.
Okay.
One of which is obviously everything is normal. Let's just start normal and let's prepare what we would normally do. And then you just have some contingency plans. I think that if you start in December, if you start in January, Thanksgiving, whatever it is, then you kind of move your schedule. But the great thing is I do think that the NCAA is going to let us know within the middle of September on what the plan is. So you realistically have to get through 3 or 4 weeks here with us. But we're going to prepare to start. We'll be on our normal NCAA guidelines in the fall, which is the 8 hours. But then you have to deal with the university protocol. And some schools aren't going to have contact. Some schools aren't going to be allowed to do teamwork. Some schools are. You could just see that in the summer where teams were playing 5-on-5 and practicing, and certain teams will only allow one person and one coach in the gym at the same time. I think that's where you're going to get into a lot of differences until we find out when the first official practice is. But for us, I think we're going to be in a good place to have a normal fall where, hopefully our lifting and stuff that we do from a conditioning standpoint can stay in small groups. And I think from a basketball perspective, we can regain and get back on the floor again with small group work, whether that's partnered up with guards and bigs, or we're still trying to figure out if we just have our roommates in the gym at the same time. So, there's a lot of things that go on, because if you mix and match your team and a guy's in a different weight workout than a skill workout, but he lives with this guy, and all of a sudden you have an instance that comes to you that a quarantine or there's an isolation that happens, realistically your whole team could go away for a couple weeks. So I think that's the one unique thing about getting a chance to come back in the summer, is really getting a chance to see, like, wow, if a kid would come in and not feel well the next day and your coaches and your team had contact with him, that wipes out coaches and players. So, do all your coaches show up at the same time in the office, and do they all go to the floor together, or do you have a group 1 and 2 that if something happens in group 1, you always have group 2 to help you navigate the week? Same thing with your trainer and your strength coach. If ever one of those 2 guys would go down, what's the backup plan if you don't have a strength and conditioning coach for 2 weeks or a trainer for 2 weeks? So that's been unique. And then I think the other thing is every program, for the most part, has managers. They have helpers. Well, I don't know about you, Aaron, but like when I was in school, the managers had as good a time as anybody out there.
That's what I was just thinking, right? When you said that. Yeah. I mean,
some guys are living in fraternity houses. Some guys are off campus with their buddies from high school. You don't pay a ton of attention to the managers because they're usually with you working their butts off, and when you don't see them, they go about their business. But now you enter the managers into the fold. Between 12, a dozen more kids into the facility that are out and about. They don't live in the same dorm as your players. They don't go to the same classes. So one of those guys, necessarily could really impact your program if they come in and don't feel well. So just a lot of that stuff. Every morning you check your phone. You just make sure that the texts that come in aren't ones that say such and such doesn't feel well. Those aren't good calls to get right now, but it's part of it, and you just kind of navigate it. There's going to be a lot of obstacles, But I feel like as we get ready to get started here, we're excited. I think we're planning on having a good fall.
Dumb question. Obviously, look, we understand the Big Ten at this point has made their decision on football, but outside of that, basketball coaches, are you guys looking at football and just saying, we hope whoever it is gets a game on the field? Because I would assume it would probably make you feel better. Like, okay, if whatever school figures it out with football, we'll probably be able to figure it out in basketball. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say. I think especially in the beginning of the summer, like if you would say that, we can get fall sports off or we can get a football game to kick off, that's going to be a big deal in terms of the next phase of all the other sports on campus that they're going to take off. I think as we've come to realize, every sport's different.
Yep.
I mean, whether it's, hand-to-hand combat like football, where it's head-on-head or face-on-face, or basketball where you're leaning up against each other, could be a lot different than swimming. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I don't think every sport should apply, in my opinion, I don't think every sport should apply to, hey, you can't pull off this, because I do think there's some sports that can play golf or, even tennis or something that's just, it seems like you should be able to do more of those. I think when it comes to basketball, though, there's the politics and there's the optics that come into it. If football is not safe to play, how's basketball going to be safe to play? And I just make the argument that, one, time is the utmost importance that you have to see how things develop through the next weeks and months, and it gets better and better. If you realistically look at college campuses and you get through a month and a half and your school's doing fine, why can't you be fine in doing what you do in November or December? I do think that they do kick off football, which it seems like some schools are playing, leagues and schools are planning on doing right now. It's probably a good sign that, not everybody believes the same thing and you can get through it. But I do know this from the Big Ten basketball perspective, as I look at it. I know our coaches are completely united on giving us as much flexibility as we can to have a season. And I think our athletic directors and everybody's on the same page, knowing that there's no immediate announcements or anything like that needs to be made, because, things change by the day and the week. And I think that as you get through a few, 3-4 weeks of school, a month of school, you'll figure more out about what's going on. But yeah, I think, the optics probably at times, if it's not safe to do one thing, why is it safe to do another? But I will say this, I think every sport's different. I think the way you travel is different. I think the way you eat's different. I think, in realization, some teams live together off campus, some teams live together, on campus. There's a lot of variables that go into how you can pull it off. So I feel like basketball is its own entity. I feel like our sport's its own deal. And I feel like we'll be fine to play with our leadership. And I think the NCAA tournament, let's not skinny around this deal. That thing is really important to everyone. And that has to find a way to come off this year. We can't go 2 years in a row with no NCAA tournament based on the revenue that it generates for all of the other entities in the NCAA under their umbrella. So I think basketball is going to be all right now that football, may be delayed here in our conference or the Pac-12 or whatever it may be. We'll see how that all plays out, but I don't think it'll play a role in basketball's decision.
Couple quick questions, I'll let you go. First one, so I was doing some research on Google this morning. So, no, because, the backstory is you sent me your email address so I could send you an invite to do this Zoom.
Right.
And your first initial was not A, as I expected, and so I went on Wikipedia, and your birth name is Ryan. And Wikipedia says that you were named, that you got the nick. I thought your first name was like Archibald or something like that. So did you really get your name Archie Miller via Archie Bunker? Is that true, or is Wikipedia lying to me?
No, Wikipedia is actually accurate on that one. That's the real name is Ryan, and at a very young age, I was given the name Arch because for whatever reason they felt like I had the same temperament as Archie Bunker.
Oh, okay.
So that's where it came from, and I don't know if it was a positive or a negative, but there's only a few people in the world that actually refer to me as Ryan, and when they do, I usually know it's a family member or what. It's a family member or whatnot. But Arch is stuck, and that's pretty much how I go by.
So it was I haven't seen enough of All in the Family. It's like my mom's favorite show too. I should have seen more episodes. So like, he seems grumpy,
Yeah.
like angry. I don't
Really
see
grumpy, never happy. Always.
I don't see that from you, man.
Yeah,
All
always
right.
always sarcastic.
Sarcastic. Okay.
Yeah, never very pleasant to be around. I think, although unfortunately
Come
they
on
didn't give
now.
it to me. Unfortunately, I didn't get it when I was an adult. I got it when I was a baby. So
Yeah.
that was probably a lead into things to come.
All right. So then, since you just kind of referenced some personality quirks, I got to ask. I've been waiting 6 months to ask this question. The situation with Joe Lunardi. I'm sorry. Just so we're clear, I was on Team Arch on this one. So for people who don't remember, you could probably just YouTube it. But you guys, I thought, were very comfortably in the NCAA tournament. For people who don't remember, you beat the ACC champ Florida State. You beat the Big Ten champ Michigan State, Penn State, my alma mater UConn, Notre Dame. But there was a noted bracketologist who did not feel like you guys were on the right side of the bubble. And, you got a little frustrated in that moment. And I just, I was just kind of curious. I don't want to put you on the spot, but, I got to ask.
Well, I think they caught me at the wrong time. We had just come off a really tough game against Wisconsin at home. And I think when the question presents itself at that time of year as a coach, you're so focused in on your team and trying to block out all the noise. And, the noise at that time of year, as you know, are the talking heads and everything. And bracketology is something that's fun for everybody to sort of follow and get into. But when it came to Indiana or me, and you wanted to talk to me about our team and our tournament resume, knowing the schedule that we played and the strength of our record, to me, we were in the tournaments. I didn't want to deal with it, but the Sesame Street comment caught fire, I guess. I didn't realize it was going to catch fire, and some guys got really sensitive and defended, Joe Lunardi, who's a terrific guy who I got to know well when I was in the Atlantic 10. He does the St. Joe's radio games and whatnot. He's very good at his job. And I think Joe knows I probably didn't mean directly to attack him, but at the end of the day, it was fun though. I think everybody got a kick out of the Sesame Street, and everybody got a kick out of watching the Cartoon Network that it is. But it's all for fun. It's all for fans and bracketology and all that. But I will say this, every coach that's been in this game for a long time knows that it's a stressful deal, and especially at the end of the season as you come through March. You can be bothered by, the talking people about your team and your resume and this and that. But, at the end of the day, I still haven't had a chance to apologize to Joe for
I don't know him personally. If you want to put it out there, I mean, I'll be happy to deliver the message if you feel an apology is necessary. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm here to help.
I don't know if an apology is necessary because I really didn't attack Joe, but maybe I did, but I don't know. But let's put it out there and let's put it to bed that I'm bigger than that, and there's a lot going on in the real world right now. And let's apologize to Joe Lunardi today together.
Okay. Joe Lunardi, I'm sure I said something mean. I'm sure I disagreed at some point with something he said. So, Joe, I apologize as well. I'm sorry. I don't know exactly about what, but I apologize. Okay, last question for real. I know you got to run. I got to ask, this is a biased, selfish, personal question. As you just said, big issues in the world right now. We're just trying to get a game on the court. But you, like myself, grew up watching hoops. You love hoops. Any chance at any point in the future, not this year, we're just trying to get games, period. Do you see any scenario where Indiana plays Kentucky again? And I'll just preface, you guys have a loaded schedule, 20 Big Ten games, ACC Big Ten Challenge. They do their thing, Champions Classic. It's not as though either side is lacking for marquee opponents, but both fan bases, you guys are right on the border. I've literally crossed that bridge myself. Any chance you think in the future that the two could play, outside of obviously an NCAA tournament or whatever, in a regular season setting?
I do. I think, number one, it's a great game, and it's going to generate great fanfare It's going to generate great, camaraderie with the schools and whatnot, the television. And in general, if you go back, you look at a split RCA dome with half blue and half red, and those are some of the games that I think people grew up, just watching. And Coach Cal is the best of the best. And you see what he's doing out there with the McClendon initiative. You see what he's able to do for people in general. And he helps a lot of people. He doesn't get as much credit as he probably can. And I think that he has his own probably dynamic scheduling, as Indiana does as well. But it's something I think in the future that can happen. And I think it'll happen when it makes sense for both schools and both schedules. And you know what? Maybe college basketball in general, maybe getting through this pandemic, maybe being able to raise awareness for civil unrest or whatever it may be. Maybe conducting Indiana can be a part of something even bigger than just the two schools in the game. Maybe it can be even bigger than that. But I think it can happen. I think that a lot of people want it to happen. Conversations fly through both offices at times.
Okay.
Cal and myself have never spoken directly about it. I think we've had intermediaries, especially our administrations, continue to kind of bump around and talk about it. But, I think in the future here, it's something that if it is pulled off, I think it would be really good. And it'll be done for the right reasons, which is for both places to really look good at the end of the day for a good cause, or maybe just in general, it's good for college basketball. But we'll see. I mean, obviously this year, it's not going to happen this year. I think as we move into the future, as we break through some of these, non-conference contracts and some of these events and things that, kind of come and go, maybe there's an opportunity for us to be able to do this thing again. And, I don't know where it starts. I don't know where it finishes, but I do know that it will happen when it's right. And like I said, I do think that Cal's one of the best in the business, if not the best in the business, when it comes to the opportunity to create a positive feel for everyone that's involved.
Sounds like you said intermediaries from both sides. It sounds like middle school, people passing notes. You like me, I like you. Let check, yes, check, no. So right. We will get there eventually. Archie Miller, head coach of Indiana. This was really fun. I know you're busy. Man, I really appreciate you doing this. I'm out of questions. I appreciate you taking some time this morning in what's a busy week with kids coming back to campus.
No, anytime, Aaron, and keep up the positive vibes. I mean, I think your energy speaks volumes out there, and I know this much as just from players' standpoints and whatnot. We need more guys out there that are pumping the positives. So much about what's going on in everybody's world right now isn't the most pleasant. There are some really good things, obviously, that happen and can happen. And as they do, guys like yourself that bring the positive stuff to the forefront, it's important that everyone realizes there's still a lot of good things that are going on and can happen.
Well, for the people who watched on Zoom, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt right now, so it really doesn't get more positive than that. Archie Miller, head coach, Indiana, looking forward to seeing you on the court soon. And I will see you on the court soon. Thank you for the time, and we'll do this again soon, Coach.
All right, appreciate it, man. Look forward to it.